Alright everyone, welcome back. So, it's been a while since we did a State of Every NHL Team series because usually I just do the power rankings, but I figured that since it's following the trade deadline and we're heading into the final stretch before the Stanley Cup playoffs, I thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at every single team currently, talk about their current state. Now, every team seems generally like, yeah, you know where they're gonna finish, but there are some teams that, could still make a push or could still fall out of the race. So let's get into it here. We'll start off with the only eliminated team at the time recording of this video, the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are 17-43-5 for 39 points, and they have 17 games remaining this season. So the games remaining really doesn't matter. From teams that I would say 32-26, it really doesn't matter for those teams how many games they have remaining because it was the general conception that they were going to miss. So Chicago, they sold at the trade deadline. They really couldn't do much, but they only traded Beauvillier. That was about all they did. So I would say that Chicago is right now in the spot where they want to be. They have the best odds for Macklin Celebrini. It's not really that close. So obviously, we will see there if they get the first overall pick for the second straight year. I remember I asked my co-host Carter last night if he thought that if he would be on board with the Blackhawks getting the first overall pick again. He had a hard no. It was a hard no from him. So, yeah, no. San Jose's number 31 with a 16-40-7 record for 39 points. They have 19 games remaining. So, the Celebrini Bowl is really real. These two teams are both tied for points. So, it's probably going to come down to either Chicago or San Jose is where Macklin Celebrini is going to land. Now, if I'm Macklin Celebrini, I probably want to go to Chicago, being dead honest. You see Connor Bedard, you see what they're building there. I would want to go to Chicago, but obviously we'll find out if that obviously goes into fruition. But San Jose, they sold at the trade deadline. They actually got some not that bad prospects back in return. Jack Thompson, David Edstrom are going to come up into this lineup and probably play pretty solid. It's just a matter of developing them right in the AHL and other junior leagues. But, San Jose, they're down the stretch here. They actually can get eliminated tonight if they lose to this team. So there is a chance there that they will be joining the eliminated list. But obviously, if it was expected, and hopefully, San Jose will keep improving in the future because I still remember the days where this team was really good and this team had some pretty damn good hockey teams that came really close to the Stanley Cup. So it'd be great to see another San Jose team come together and make a run for the Stanley Cup again. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but obviously it would be great to see. Number 30 is the Anaheim Ducks with a 23-38-3 record for 49 points. They have 18 games remaining this season. So, Anaheim's another one of those teams that it's not surprising, that they are down towards the bottom. Obviously they got blatant issues. They sold at the trade deadline. They traded Henrique, they traded Carrick, they traded Lyubushkin. They made all the moves that they could have made. I think they did the right moves here. But it's a matter of just, developing the young guys, running it down towards the end of the season. Because this team, I think this is, I said this last year, I think this really could be the last year where they're really bad. I think this could be the last year where they're painfully bad to watch. Because I think guys like McTavish, Cutter Gauthier is going to come over. That blue line's going to get more established with Zellweger, Mintyukov. It's going to be a really fun freaking team down the stretch. So I think that next season's where you can be really excited. And they have 2 first-round picks again this year. So they're really going to stack up their prospect pool. And seeing a team, too, be bad for this long, like Anaheim, I look at Carolina as a really good example. Carolina's going to be good for at least the next 10 years. Anaheim is probably going to be the same way with the amount of prospects they have and the amount they have developing. I think if they do it right, they could be really solid for the next decade even. Next up then, the Columbus Blue Jackets are at 29. They have a 22-32-10 record for 54 points. They have 18 games remaining in their season. So Columbus, generally, they're where they were thought to be too. Some people had them higher. Some people thought they'd be better. But honestly, they're just still not there yet. They are also building a really solid young core there. And we could be looking at the next couple of years of Anaheim and Columbus being really good hockey teams in the next couple of years. Guys like Fantilli, Marchenko, Sillinger, all these guys look really exciting. It's a matter of developing those players and getting them to normalcy. So yeah, a lot of these teams, as I've said, you're looking to next season and the draft a lot with these guys. But I do think that in our 2024 reviews, I'll go more in depth with what their season looked like month by month, their power rankings, all that good stuff. And then we'll get into the offseason because these teams, you're more or less just focusing on the future right now. That's kind of what you're looking at. Number 28 is a team that might actually have a concerning future, even though they feel like they have been through a rebuild already. It's the Ottawa Senators, a 25-33-4 record for 54 points. They have 20 games remaining on the season. So they're still mathematically in it, but realistically, they're not going to make it. That's just without a doubt. It sucks because Ottawa, I feel like, has a pretty solid roster. Like, they have a roster on paper that could have done some damage, but I feel like some early season struggles have really affected this team. And it's similar to Vancouver, what Vancouver dealt with for many years, just issues on the blue line, issues in the goaltending. I feel like the offense is fine, but with Ottawa, that Korpisalo contract, hopefully he gets better in the coming seasons, or else that's going to be a brutal contract. You're going to have to really hope that Matt Sogard or they go out and get a goalie that can really sustain that. But with Korpisalo, it's not ideal with the way he's been playing with this Sens team. Number 27 is the Arizona Coyotes. Talk about a team that went from in a pretty solid spot to falling the heck off. They went 26-34-5 for 57 points. They have 17 games remaining on their season. So Arizona for a while looked like a team that, yeah, they could stay in the hunt. There were some signs of like inconsistency, and that was the biggest thing that I was worried about with this Coyotes team was just they can't stay consistent. I didn't think they'd be a playoff team, but they looked better than what we thought they were going to be, and then they lose 14 straight. So that obviously was not ideal, and that was a really painful too because their schedule was just so difficult. And you get to the point where you just lose so many games that like the motivation and the desire just like it kind of the momentum's really down, so that's why it took a while for Arizona to really get out of that stretch, which they ironically beat the Ottawa Senators. But still, it's just unfortunate how things went there. But definitely, Arizona looks like they're progressing 100%, but it's just a matter of, well, you need to develop the right guys and get this team to where they want to be. Number 26, I'd say we're in the last of the teams that are expected to be where they are. It's the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens are 24-30-10 for 58 points. They have 18 games remaining on the season. Montreal, kind of like Arizona, looked pretty solid in the beginning and the middle of the season, but down the stretch here they've struggled. They aren't that far out of 500. They're only 6 games below, which is kind of better than what it's been in previous years. But still, you want to see Montreal improve. You want to see them get better. Even before they were bad, they were kind of just like a mediocre team for a few years there. They weren't all too great. So I'm hoping that with Montreal, the core that they're building, I hope that definitely improves. But Montreal is for sure a team that is focusing on the draft and all that. Number 25 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we start getting into the teams that are kind of like outside looking in, but they aren't lottery teams necessarily. Pittsburgh is currently 28-27-8 for 64 points. They have 19 games remaining on the season. It's been rough. They traded Jake Gensel. That was the biggest thing, and we've seen Crosby complain about that. The team overall, they don't look like they have a bad roster on paper. It's just a matter of defensive issues, offense not being able to score. There's a lot of problems there on that blue line for Pittsburgh. And just Chris Letang. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to call out one certain player, but just looking at, I know I'm saying this from a Flyers jersey, but Chris Letang, whenever I watch Penguins games or Penguins highlights, Chris Letang has just been a liability defensively. It just seems like every single play, he doesn't look that great. So it's just unfortunate. But the Penguins is just not in the cards for them to make it this year. It's just not. So Pittsburgh, focusing on the draft, they got some good prospects for a guy like Jake Gensel. So hopefully that will improve their future. But still, it's not looking too great right now for this Pittsburgh team. Number 24 is the Buffalo Sabres. They went 30-30-5 for 65 points. They have 17 games remaining on the season. Look, I would love for Buffalo to make the playoffs. I would love for Buffalo to go on a great run, but it's just not there. They have to get like 7 more points, and they have to hope that like teams like Detroit and Tampa all lose their games for the rest of the season. You just can't rely on that. So it's going to be, I think, 12 years without playoffs. It might even be 13 at this point. It's been a long freaking time since we've seen playoffs in Buffalo, and it just shows how the momentum is not great for them. I do think that they're making solid improvements, and next season could be the year. But I said that last year, and I said that the year before. I always get really high on Buffalo. Not doing it next year. But yeah, Buffalo, just you want to focus on the draft, I guess, if you're them. I mean, you want to still try and fight and get for a spot because they are only 500. They're better than what they used to be, but still, it's still not the greatest thing in the world to see. So Buffalo at number 24. Number 23, another really disappointing team here is the New Jersey Devils. The Devils went 31, 29, and 4 for 66 points. They have 18 games remaining on the season. I think the Devils are done. I think that a lot of these teams that are on the outside looking in right now are done. I don't think there's going to be the odds are not in their favor. They're just not. So the Devils, obviously the biggest issue they dealt with was goaltending. They did try and solve that with getting Kokkonen and Allen, but is Kokkonen and Allen really going to solve their goaltending problems? Probably not. So this team's looking at another missed playoffs. It stinks because last year they were great. They were really fun to watch, but they've just seemed to have fallen back down to earth a little bit this year, and it seems like they've kind of peaked a little bit too early. So they're still in the race. We'll see what the rest of the season looks like. There's still plenty of time, I guess, but obviously it's not looking too good because the season ends in like a little over a month. So the odds aren't great for these teams that are on the outside. Number 22, and by the way, I forgot to mention, this is by the NHL standings. I don't know if people realize that. The St. Louis Blues. The Blues are 32, 29, and 3 for 67 points. They have 18 games remaining on the season. Yeah, St. Louis probably done. They didn't make any moves at the trade deadline, which surprised me. I figured they'd do something, whether it was buying or selling. No, they didn't really do anything. So I guess they're kind of relying on this core to make one last run here. And then I think after this year, if they miss the playoffs again, they might start selling off guys. That might be what they start off doing. But I thought they'd do that at this deadline, but they didn't. So obviously we'll find out there. But this team, I mean, they have a pretty solid prospect pool for a team that's kind of a mediocrity right now. I do hope that St. Louis does get better and makes the playoffs next season. But this year, I think that, you're going to have to get to Vegas, and that's a pretty high hill to climb. So it's really not looking too good right now for the St. Louis Blues. Number 21 is the Calgary Flames. They're kind of in the same boat as St. Louis. They are 31, 28, and 5 for 67 points. They have 18 games remaining. Now, even though this team sold off Hanifin, they sold off Uyghur. They sold off Tanev, they sold off Lindholm. They still win games. They're still winning games here and there and keeping themselves in the race. It's just really weird to see that that's happening. But I don't think Calgary makes it. They, again, just like Vegas, they have a really high hill to climb to pass Vegas for that second wild card spot, and I just can't see it happening. Like, I really can't. And, like, Nashville and Vegas collectively right now look pretty good. Vegas, I think, is going to have to mesh with their guys. I'll get into that later with Vegas. But Nashville looks like a playoff lock right now. I just can't see the Calgary Flames making it into that playoff spot. So, basically, anyone in the West is pretty much done for. Speaking of which, number 20 is the Seattle Kraken with a 28, 24, and 11 record for 67 points. They have 17 games remaining on the season. Seattle, again, another team that I do think, like, they show signs of positivity, but ideally, they aren't in it. I mean, the overtime points really keep them in the race, but really, they're not going to make it this year. It's just not in the cards. Again, passing Vegas is going to be very difficult. I think this team has potential. They have some good guys in the pipeline, but I do think that a year of missing the playoffs and getting a decently high draft pick could benefit them in the long run. So I would not mind that if I am the Seattle Kraken. Number 19 is the Minnesota Wild. So I'm kind of breezing through these Western Conference teams here because I really don't think they're going to make it. Just being genuinely honest with you guys here, I really don't think they're going to make it. Minnesota, 31, 27, and 7 for 69 points. They have 17 games remaining on the season. Yeah, Minnesota, I think, is also kind of done for. They look like they're showing signs of positivity, which kind of tells me that they will make the playoffs probably next year. They'll probably be back in it. But just this year, there was a lot of really rough starts for a lot of teams like Edmonton and Minnesota. And I think Minnesota just kind of fell too far behind. And I think it's going to be pretty hard for them to catch up to some of the other teams that they're chasing. So it's really not ideal right now. And the next team that they have to go up and get is Vegas. And they're like 7 points behind Vegas. So again, for like Minnesota, Seattle, Calgary, just all of those teams in that wild card race, it just doesn't look good. Like, I can't see Vegas missing the playoffs. I can't. After all they did, I just can't see it. So we'll obviously find out there if that happens. Maybe Vegas goes on a losing streak. I could be wrong, but we'll find out. I just don't see it happening personally. Number 18 is the Washington Capitals. The Capitals are 30-23-9 for 69 points. They have 20 games remaining on the season. So Washington they do have the most games remaining out of any team besides the Ottawa Senators. So obviously that's a really good advantage to have. And I think that they could go on like a winning streak here and start winning games. However, their schedule is really difficult. They go on that Western Conference road trip where they play Edmonton, Winnipeg, Vancouver. That is not easy at all. There have been plenty of teams, even the top teams in the NHL, like the Hurricanes and the Rangers, have gone through that trip and have not looked good. So it's just not something that is really ideal for the Capitals. It's really not in their favor. So I'm not surprised they kind of sold at the trade deadline, but they did the right things, I felt like. So I feel like another year of missing the playoffs and getting another decently high draft pick could really benefit the Capitals overall. And they're kind of going for this competitive rebuild, it looks like, where they're trying to keep Ovechkin in the running, try to get him to the goal record and keep some of the old guard there. But, they're still acquiring younger players like McMichael's come in, Lapierre's come in. I think Leonard's going to come in soon. So there are some good names there in Washington that will come in. And hopefully this year they get another really solid pick of the draft that will help them out. Number 17. You get into the teams that I feel like are in the mix, that I feel like are really going to, you could make a really good case here for them making it into the playoffs. Number 17 are the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are currently 33-25-6 for 72 points. They have 18 games remaining. Now, the Red Wings were in a wild card spot, but they're kind of starting to sell. They're kind of starting to not really sell like deadline-wise, but they're starting to sell where they are, because when you look at it, they were in a really good spot, then they lost 5 in a row, and the Islanders won 6 in a row. So that put them out of a playoff spot. The Islanders are now ahead of them because they have the tiebreaker, which is really unfortunate, but that's just how it is. Detroit needs to build on that. They don't have a game in hand. The Islanders do, so it's just really not ideal right now for the Red Wings. But I feel like they can definitely make a push if the Islanders start losing again after this winning streak. As a Flyers fan, I'm kind of hoping they do, but not trying to diss the Islanders. The Red Wings, I definitely think, have been a really good team. Even if they miss the playoffs, I think they still have shown really big signs of improvement, and it just shows that next year could be the year they make the playoffs if they make the right moves in the offseason. So Detroit at 17, I'm not too mad at it. So at number 16 here, moving into the top 16, I have the New York Islanders at 16. The Islanders are currently 29-20-14 for 72 points. They have 19 games remaining on the season. So the Islanders were on a 6-game winning streak. They tried to make it 7, but they got shut out by the Kings. Definitely not ideal there, but they're hoping to come back to, I believe, home and go on a homestand, I think. But the Islanders, I mean, it's all about them getting hot at the right time, I think, with this team. I feel like they have enough overtime points that keep them in the race, and they can definitely go on a run, but they only really have, it just makes me a little bit annoyed that, they're in this range where, a lot of these teams have, they have 30 to 40 wins. The Islanders only have 29. It's just not. It makes me a little annoyed with the system. I don't blame the Islanders for using it. I don't blame the Islanders for playing that way. And it's not the Islanders' fault because they blow a lot of leads, but just, a lot of overtime points keeps them in the race. And if they get hot at the right time, then they make the playoffs probably. So we'll find out there if that is going to happen. But we'll see. Number 15 is the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers are currently 33-24-8 for 74 points. They have 17 games remaining on the season. The Flyers were at a disadvantage there for a little bit because they had more games played than everyone. Tonight's game against the Sharks could be huge. They need to start winning games here. And it's really not ideal because a lot of their defensemen are out. A lot of their forwards are also injured. So it's just really unlucky right now for the Flyers. So, I mean, I'm hoping that they make the playoffs, but it's not a big deal if they don't because it wasn't really expected for them to. So, then again, it's not a huge deal if they miss, but just obviously, you still want to see your favorite team make it into the playoffs. But I think with the Islanders catching up with us, they're on a hot streak, and with just our injuries, and Detroit too, I feel like we might be the odd ones out. But we'll find out. And if we do make the playoffs, then we'll probably get swept in the first round. We'll find out. Number 14 is the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning are definitely in there, but they've shown some signs of struggling. They are 34-25-6 for 74 points. They have 17 games remaining on the season. Now, if Philadelphia wins tonight, they get 76 points, so it'll be Tampa and the Islanders in that wild card spot. So they will be fighting for that there. But definitely, I think with Tampa, it's going to really come down to this last couple of games here. I think they did well with Duclair and getting, guys like Dumba, but obviously we're going to need to see them pan out on that, or else it's not really going to work out. So obviously, Tampa, there's a team that I'm thinking about. Maybe they could miss, but it's a matter of if they start cooling off and the Islanders or the Red Wings get hot, because all it takes is two of them to get hot for one of these teams to get knocked out. So it's going to come down to the last couple of games of the season here. Unless if, per se, Detroit keeps losing or, another team goes on a massive losing streak. It's just really going to come down to those games between those four teams battling for those last couple of spots in the East. Number 13 is the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Golden Knights are 34, 23, and 7 for 75 points. They have 18 games remaining. Now, even though they're 13th in the NHL, they're in a wild card spot because the West is just really the gap between the West and the East is insane right now. And with the Kings, they're tied with Vegas too. That's just the gap between, the Kings and Vegas and, Calgary, Edmonton and Vancouver. It's just a really large gap right now. And then the Central teams too, they're really far ahead of Nashville. We'll get into that in a little bit, but it's just insane how the West is really competitive this season. But Vegas, I think a lot of it is their injuries. They really have not been the same since November. They've been really struggling in December, January, February. They've had decent months, but they haven't had months that were awesome since those November and October, the start of the season. It kind of makes me think that they kind of peaked a little bit too early. But I do think with this overall roster, it'd be shocking if they miss the playoffs. It'd be shocking if they don't do anything in the playoffs. I think Vegas is a good enough team and a good enough coach that I think they definitely can go on a run. I think it's without a doubt. It's just a matter of, who comes back after the LTIR situation? So we'll see. Number 12 is the Los Angeles Kings, tied with the Golden Knights with a 32, 20, and 11 record for 75 points. They have 19 games remaining on the season. LA, they showed signs of struggling, but ever since Hiller's come in and coached, they've looked good. So I'm hoping that will continue. But definitely LA, they didn't do anything at the trade deadline, which is kind of a concern. I do think, though, that they will be, they probably will lock up that third spot in the match in the Pacific. But again, they're tied with Vegas, so we'll obviously see there if that does happen. But there's a lot of questions in regards to what exactly the playoffs are going to look like. I don't think we're going to know a lot of the playoff matchups until a week, maybe not even a week, a few days before the playoffs start, to be honest, because that's just how competitive this is this year. And I feel like last year was kind of the same too, but at the same time, a lot of the matchups we did know were more or less you could predict them easily. A lot of these matchups you can say, so-and-so will face this team, but just right now it just isn't we really don't know for a lot of these teams. Number 11. This is a team that has looked really impressive for me, is the Nashville Predators. The Predators went 37, 25, and 4 for 78 points. They have 16 games remaining on the season. They are probably a playoff lock. They are about 10 points ahead of the next wildcard team fighting for it there. I believe it's Minnesota. So they are about 10 points ahead of them. So that puts them at an advantage. However, they have played the most games in the NHL out of every team. So there is a very solid chance that Nashville could lose a few games here and they don't have the games in hand to, get back and gain ground, and they could finish either outside or in the second wildcard spot. But I think that definitely the odds are 100% in Nashville's favor. They look like a playoff team. They look great. They acquired good guys at the deadline. I think overall right now they are 100% going to be a playoff team. Number 10 is the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers went, or currently are, 39, 21, and 3 for 81 points. They have 19 games remaining on the season. So, Edmonton, what else can I say? They had a really good second half of the season. They won that 16 straight games. Even when they went 2-9, they're still in a playoff spot. They still look like they could even get home ice advantage. They are in a really good spot right now when it comes to looking at just where they are overall. They win games dominantly. They beat good teams. They beat bad teams. They're beating pretty much every team right now. They're a really hard team to beat, and they have been since the start. Since they have been since they brought in Nullbox. So it just looks like that. The Oilers are for sure going to be a playoff team, and there's no doubt. We'll just see what they do in the playoffs, obviously. Number 9 is the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs went 37, 19, and 8 for 82 points. They have 18 games remaining on the season. I like where Toronto is. I have some doubts, though. I have some doubts on this overall team. I have some doubts on this defense. I have some doubts on the goaltending. I just don't know if, like, Samsonov or Jones or Wall is going to carry you that far in the playoffs. Maybe second round, sure, but I really just can't see it. And you're playing a Boston team that has owned you for the past, like, 2.5 years. They haven't beaten Boston in ages, it feels like. And neither is this team. So let me be honest. Neither has the Flyers. But just looking at that, I don't know if I like Toronto's odds. I think they definitely will put up a fight and be good for sure, but I feel like there's just some underlying issues like depth scoring and, defensive problems. I hope Edmonton and LaBouche can help. I hope Patan and Dewar help, but I just don't like their odds besides that. I really don't. So we'll see what happens, but Toronto at number 9. Number 8 is the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes went 39-19-6 for 84 points. They have 18 games remaining on the season. They're another team that I am heavily in favor of just them picking them as the Stanley Cup winner. I really love their moves. I love them acquiring Jake Gensel. I love them going out and getting a guy like Kuznetsov. They made all the right moves at the deadline again. We'll see, though, if the number one player or the best player in the market wins you the Stanley Cup. Because I've seen in plenty of years that the number one player doesn't necessarily win you the Stanley Cup. But we'll find out there if Carolina can pull it off there. But yeah, their offense is great. Their defense is great. We'll see what the goaltending looks like, but it's been pretty solid. So we'll obviously see there. Maybe they don't even need great goaltending. Maybe they just need solid goaltending to go on and win a cup. Just look at some of the other previous teams that have won it, like Colorado, Vegas. Those are teams that didn't have, like, no disrespect to, like, Hill or Kemper, but they didn't have star goaltenders to get them through into a playoff spot or get them to a Stanley Cup. So obviously we'll see there if that puts in Carolina's advantage. Number 7 is the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche are 40-20-5, for 85 points. They have 17 games remaining on the season. Colorado, undisputably a playoff team. There actually are some struggles that I'm a little bit concerned about. There are some points in the season where I've been a little bit concerned with the way Colorado's been playing. I've actually seen that since they won the Cup. Even last year, they showed some signs of concern. But I think it's with Landeskog being out, this team just has not been the same since. They just really haven't. But I love the moves they made. I love acquiring Sean Walker. I love Duhaime. I like the moves they made. So hopefully that will lead them to the promised land and get them another Stanley Cup in this year of 2024. Number 6 is the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets are ahead of them currently with a 40-18-5 record for 85 points. They have 19 games remaining on the season. Winnipeg, I think it's a matter of claiming home ice advantage because honestly, it kind of looks like it's going to be them in Colorado. That looks like what the matchup's going to be. Dallas is a few points ahead of them. I've been wrong before, but I really do think that it might be a Colorado-Winnipeg first-round matchup. But we'll find out. But yeah, I like Winnipeg's odds. I like Toffoli and Monahan coming in. I think this team has really good offense, great defense, great goaltending. I think that overall they could be a really solid team heading into the playoffs this season. And hopefully that is what happens. Excuse me. Number 5. Sorry. That was really, I could feel it coming. I'm just like, Jesus. Number 5 is the New York Rangers. The Rangers are currently 41-18-4 for 86 points. They have 19 games remaining on the season. Again, the Rangers are another team that I like the way they're playing. I like their offense. I like their defense. I like their goaltending. Again, I think there's a lot of teams here that you could argue as blatant cup contenders. I think you could argue them as just like teams that really could go for the Stanley Cup. So we'll see there if if the Rangers, I'm really tired. We'll see if the Rangers are the team that is going to go on the run in the East. But yeah, I'm going to need to see more out of some of those players, some of that depth scoring. That makes me a little bit concerned. And Zibanejad too. He hasn't scored in a while before the night against the Devils. So it just really, it's not looking great right now. So hopefully the Rangers improve in that remark. But just overall, I feel like a lot of teams tend to hate on the Rangers and look at just like the advanced stats. But I do think they're a really good team. I think they can definitely go for a Stanley Cup. But we shall find out. Number 4 is the Dallas Stars. The Stars are 40-17-9 for 89 points. They have 16 games remaining on the season. Dallas is only 2 points behind Vancouver. With Tanev, with Stankoven, they look great. Guys that have come up after the trade deadline, like Stankoven, as I just said, playing on a line with Rupe Hintz and Robertson, looks awesome. It looks awesome right now for the Dallas Stars, and I'm really liking their odds at going on a legitimate run here. They could even win the conference with the way they've been playing. I think they're definitely in that conversation for sure, being at number 4. And they're only 2 points behind Vancouver for that number 1 spot. So we'll see what happens there, but it looks like the Stars are likely going to win the Central Division. That looks like what's going to happen, but there's obviously still about 20 games on average left in the season. And Dallas has played the most games out of anyone in that division, besides Nashville. Number 3 is the Boston Bruins. The Bruins have 38, 13-5 record for 91 points. They have 16 games remaining on the season. I'm going to be honest, I don't like Boston's odds either. I feel like there are some games that I watch Boston and I'm just really not into it. I don't think they're the best cup contending team out there, but they're definitely one of them. I like Maroon, I like Peak, but just overall, I think there's some concerns with the Bruins. I think there might be some mental issues. There may be some issues with that defense, but just I feel like they kind of peaked too hard in the regular season at the beginning of this year, and it just really hasn't been the same since. A lot of overtime games too, a lot of overtime points, but obviously you factor that in. A lot of teams would not be in a playoff spot if it weren't for those points. It'd just be based off a record. So I won't go into that conversation. That's a video for another time. But yeah, Boston at number 3. We'll see what the playoffs look like for them. At number 2 here, I have the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks are currently 42, 17-7 for 91 points. They have 16 games remaining on the season. Vancouver is another team that I really like the way they've been playing. There have been some struggles in there, which obviously it's an 82-game season. Teams will go through struggles, but I really like the way Vancouver's been playing recently. It seems like they've picked it back up since those struggles, and hopefully that continues. It looks like they are probably going to win the Western Conference unless Dallas or Winnipeg catches up with them, but right now it looks like Vancouver is going to win it. But realistically, do you really want to play Vegas in the first round? Because that looks like what it's going to be right now. We'll obviously find out. We'll see if that actually goes into fruition and happens. But Vancouver, I love the way they're playing. I love their odds, and I think they're a really good hockey team. But I think it is a better hockey team right now and playing some of their best hockey I've ever seen is the Florida Panthers at number 1. The Panthers are 44, 17-4 for 92 points. They have 17 games remaining on the season. I think they win the conference. I think they win the East. I think they might even be the best team in the NHL. I was so wrong on Florida, it's not even funny. I was so wrong. So unbelievably wrong on this team. I love watching Florida play. They're really enjoyable to watch the way they play. Just overall, all 4 lines are great. The defense is great. The goaltending is great. The offense looks awesome. Everything with this Panthers team looks really good right now. This is one of the best seasons I've seen in Florida. And even in the year where they were scoring at an insane rate and playing really well, I didn't even think this team was going to go that far. This is a team that I feel like can really go far. Honestly, I really love the odds of this Florida team going far in the Cup playoffs. I really love those odds. So I'm hoping that happens for Florida Panthers fans. I love to see Florida go on another run. I loved it last year. I would love it again this year. So anyways, that does it for the state of every NHL team. Let me know your thoughts on your team in the comment section down below. And thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe down below. I really appreciate it. But regardless, my voice is getting tired. I am getting tired. I'm going to edit this video and get it out there for you fine people. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.